Welcome! You are listening to the CRM Success Show, where you will hear from CRM executives who have overseen some of the most interesting and complex CRM implementations. Your hosts, David Mosry and Kira Whitey, will be bringing you real stories, real insight. Follow along on social media for updates on new episode releases, exclusive content, and much more. Enjoy the show and thanks for listening.
Hey, welcome to the CRM Success Show. Today we're talking with Tiffany Spencer, IT Manager at Giving Kitchen. So welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome, Tiffany. So, Tiffany, just start by giving our listeners a background about yourself. Who is Tiffany Spencer and what do Giving Kitchen do?
So my name is Tiffany Spencer. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for over 15 years. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and I have been leading digital transformations from small to large corporations for over 15 years. I do several things across the Salesforce ecosystem, one of them being an MVP. I've been a user group leader. I lead a community conference. I have my own nonprofit, Tech Forward. I'm also the IT manager at the Giving Kitchen. The Giving Kitchen is a nonprofit based here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am, and we help food service workers that are in crisis. So we provide lots of different resources, financial assistance. We try to help with wraparound services for food service workers that are in crisis. And when people hear food service workers, sometimes that rings a bell and sometimes it doesn't. But if you think about like your different types of hospitality workers, specifically those that work in like a restaurant and food service, those workers don't always have, PTO. And when a crisis comes up, and if they're hourly, they rely on tips, they sometimes need some support. And that industry can be difficult depending on what type of establishment you work at to get the support you need. Those restaurants may or may not have, employee resource programs the way bigger organizations that we're used to working at, they may not have that.
I read over 30,000 food service workers benefited from the organization, which equates to over $15 million worth of funds. So if any of our listeners would like to get involved and participate, how would they go about learning more about Giving Kitchen and potentially donating?
Yeah, you can go to givingkitchen.org. There you can donate, you can sign up to volunteer.
So, Tiffany, you started out your career, you did a little bit of consulting. I saw you had 3 or 4 roles in the consulting space. And then is it fair to say you found your passion in the nonprofit industry vertical thereafter?
I would say maybe around 2019 when I started my nonprofit Tech Forward is when I started getting into the nonprofit space. Back during that time, one of the initiatives that Salesforce had, of course, was, if you want to volunteer, you should help a nonprofit, or if you're looking to get experience, you should work with a nonprofit. And I started to, as I was training people, I went out and found some nonprofits that wanted to use Salesforce, were currently using Salesforce, and I led the project so that individuals that I was training could get some hands-on experience. And so that's how I started working with nonprofits and creating templates or quick starts that the individuals that I was working with could follow. And that is how I got started nonprofit work.
We're going to cover later on in the podcast a little bit about training and development. So this is just a quick question. Do you still think the nonprofit route is a viable option for admins, developers, etc., that are looking to get hands-on Salesforce experience for the first time, or do you think that kind of ship sailed somewhat?
Well, I would say I don't recommend for any org that someone use any org as practice. I think if it's a small business or a nonprofit, you should always go into those projects with an experienced professional that you're partnered with. If it's a nonprofit, a small business, I think it's great exposure to be able to help those types of businesses. I do not think you should go at it alone. I highly encourage people to partner with someone on any type of project like that. Or what I think is better is to even come up with a use case, even a real example, and do a project that maybe it's not for someone, but you treat it like it is. And again, still have a Salesforce professional that you are mentored by or coached by that can look over your work, because it's not just about the knowing how to do the configuration work, right? Sometimes when you're learning Salesforce, you focus so much on the config. When as a consultant, that's like the I would say consultants would say that's the least of your worries. It's part of it, but getting the requirements, client management skills, the actual consulting part of the consulting project is really what's a little bit more important than just the configuration, and knowing the best practices, knowing how to make those decisions. And if you're new, you don't know that, and so you definitely need someone to work with you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Identifying a mentor at the very least that can support you on that journey if you are newer yourself into the Salesforce ecosystem. Seven times Salesforce certified. I see you're keeping up to date with your certs. Is there any certs at the moment that you're working on? I always like to. None of us are a finished article, so anything you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm looking at some of the AI certs that I want to do, data cloud. So I'm really focusing on those right now. I'm also looking at, I use ClickUp a lot. So ClickUp, Microsoft, because of the work that I do at Giving Kitchen. So I have a list of the other systems that I'm responsible for, getting some additional certifications there.
Yeah, I think Salesforce already retired the AI.
Yeah, the
cert.
first one, the AI associate, they retired, and
Right.
they replaced that with the Agent Blazer Champion. The consultant level certifications they still have.
I haven't gotten a new cert in like 5 years since I started the one. I thought,
Yeah, I've
um,
definitely had. Well, there's like 30 certs, so
oh,
I'm
there's way more.
definitely behind on certifications.
Yeah. Hey, Kiro, what's the most you've come across? Because I know you talk to a lot of people. You've seen
Yeah, I
people
mean,
like 50?
no, I think there's over 48 certifications now. High 30s. I've definitely seen a couple in the high 30s. I think at that point it's like Pokemon, right? Gotta catch them all, kind of thing. But look, I think continuous improvement, development, learning is important and should be encouraged, and that's something we're going to cover later on. Whether that's Salesforce certs or other skill sets.
Tiffany, why don't you tell us a bit more about the Giving Kitchen's Salesforce journey and how you got
Yeah.
involved, or how you started, I guess.
So I've been with the Giving Kitchen for over a year now. And when I started, Salesforce is one of the main systems that I'm responsible for. I did a bit of a exploration of our Salesforce org. So doing that assessment of not only Salesforce, but all of our systems, where we're keeping data, what were the current processes. I realized that the organization's needs grew beyond kind of how we were using Salesforce and using it in PSP. And so if you think about the work that we do as an organization, as a smaller nonprofit, right? And so in our support of food service workers, which is really critical, that is where our program management and case management features come in. And then the other side is our development team, right? So all of our fundraising efforts. And then we have an amazing marketing team as well, where we run many email campaigns and newsletters. And so data, like any nonprofit organization, is super important. And our system reflected years of just evolving processes and different people that had worked in our org. And I could see just the different workarounds. I can tell, the different consultants or team changes. And so it was causing some operational issues with our current Salesforce setup. When I did the assessment, MPC, which is, it's not called MPC anymore, the Agent Force Nonprofit Cloud, formerly just Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud, it was maybe about a year old. And, Salesforce is not pushing people to migrate, but in learning the features of it and looking at our processes and where we needed to go, I felt that instead of trying to fix all of the process, operational issues, tech debt that was in our current org, that it would actually be better for us to start in a new org. And so that's how I started looking at MPC and then going down a path of migrating us from MPSP to MPC.
So tell us a bit more about that. So did you even consider moving to a new org with NPSP, Nonprofit Service Pack? Or once you decided to move to a new org, it's like, no, I'm still going to call it NPC. I don't care. A nonprofit cloud is the future. And they say, okay, we're just going to keep going in that direction.
Yeah, so when I did the evaluation of our org, I had to look at like what processes are working today, where were we creating workarounds. I looked at our reporting. I was thinking about our future programs. I was looking at our data. So there were a few key things that made NPC better for us than Nonprofit Cloud. One is in the Agentforce Nonprofit Cloud, instead of all of the money or transactions, donations, all being in opportunities, in NPC, there are several new objects in the data model. So you can still use opportunities for pipeline, but then you have these gift commitments. So there's a gift commitment object for like pledges, and then there's the gift transaction object for when money actually comes in. We actually needed that. And you could do some of that in NPSP, but we had created workarounds, particularly because we have a lot of pledges. And so looking at that data model was going to be much better for us. We do a lot of major giving. We have a lot of amazing partners, and being able to really track who gave a pledge, what did they pledge, how much money has come in, how much we're waiting. We could have used NPSP, but it would have required a little bit more workarounds. And so NPC was a little bit better for that scenario. Also with NPC, you get case management included. So in NPSP case management, those features is an add-on product. In NPC, it is not as included. And because we do a level of human services with our case managers, being able to have that functionality available was also a little bit better for us. And some of the marketing features, being able to tie marketing campaigns easier to donations and things that were coming in, that also made a difference. So there was a lot about the data model that would help me easily clean up some of the data issues that we were having and make a little bit more cleaner processes for our team.
So it sounds like it's a real upgrade.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised they give you case management just out of nowhere. Is there a cost difference between NPC and NPSP?
I think the license price might be a little bit higher, but I know that they're probably still discounting it. So I wish I could
Wasn't
tell you.
enough to impact the decision, I guess. It was negligible. How Salesforce negotiates. We always tell everyone negotiate with Salesforce on their pricing. So I was more asking at the list price.
I don't think it's that much more. It did increase, but I don't think it was that much more.
So I'm not super familiar with NPSP. It's actually one of the areas I've done a little bit of work in nonprofits, but not a tremendous. The pledge, is that an opportunity, or did the custom?
So in NPSP, you do have the opportunity. So you have the opportunity object, and then you have payments. And so you could have an opportunity for the pledge, and then create, payments for each part of it. But it gets a little bit messy because if you have outstanding payments or you missed a payment, or just even having like pipeline opportunities and then your pledges and then being able to see. So you could have, but it just puts so much pressure in NPSP to have everything on the opportunity. And so I really like the difference in the objects, having a specific object for gift commitments that you can or can't, you don't have to use it in NPC, and then having that specific object for the actual money that comes in, those gift transactions.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, particularly when there's a lot of small objects.
Yeah.
Sorry, a lot of small donations. I don't know if that's the case with you guys, right?
Yeah,
I know.
we do have we have a good amount of donations. We also have events. And so it could just make, again, that opportunity object really do a lot of work when every time, for every event, every ticket, then there's an opportunity, and then there's the payment, and then being able to, got to think of the team if they are trying to create pipeline opportunities for the next year. And so having to create all the different record types and making sure that they are, picking the right type. Again, it was very possible, but the features that were available with NPC, with being able to create a gift commitment schedule, right? So if someone pledges and they want to pay, X amount of dollars over 4 years, you can create that schedule. It automatically creates a transaction. Again, things that I could do in NPC, but would have been custom. So there were a lot more features that came with NPC that I like. Now, there are some customizations that I still need to do to make it easier because a lot more objects means a lot more clicking. But the out of the box features, I really do enjoy.
Okay, awesome. So it's been a year. I think you said you've been there.
Well, I have a week to do one team. So our development team is cutting over next week, and then our programs team is cutting over in a month.
Oh wow! So you got a big week coming up. I'm surprised you got time to record this.
I'll be up extra.
Yeah, I'm sure. So tell us about the change management, right? So right, more clicks, more different object model. Obviously, the reporting now has to be completely changed. So they have to think about it. How do you go about getting your user base up to speed and excited?
Yeah. So when I did the assessment, what I did recognize the organization did need some updating of our processes and our documentation. And so this migration gave me a good opportunity to reevaluate processes with the team, be able to do some automation of manual processes. So I actually branded the whole project. So this is called, one of our values for the Giving Kitchen is being audacious. And so I called this our Audacious Automation Project. The idea behind that is that, of course, nonprofits, like many organizations, have to do a lot with less. And so what can we automate? How can we make things not so manual? And so that helped some with the change management because I needed a way to at least get people bought in and excited. And one of the things that I say is that this is not happening to you. We're doing this together and this is for you. And so making sure that our team, understood why we were doing this change, what would be coming up, what features would be better, what would be changing. We also created a group of super users from each department. So we wanted to make sure that, because again, we're a smaller organization, that we had, at a nonprofit, you have people that have, knowledge just because they've been there for so long. And so being able to give all of those people just kind of a voice to speak for the different departments was really important. And especially if, sometimes I can think a change is amazing and someone else will be like, no, we can't do this, or we shouldn't do this, and we should think about this and that. And being able to, one, validate that, and then two, say, hey, we did used to do that, but now we're not anymore. Or, you know what, that was a good catch. We should definitely include that. So being able to have our super users really bring that historical knowledge. As leaders of organizations, sometimes nobody wants to tell you when something's broken, right? So when you ask for a report and, somebody gives it to you a day later, the leader may not know how the effort it took to make that report, right? That somebody was manually updating data or manually entering data or manually, jumping through hoops. And so being able to sit with our executive leadership team to say, hey, this is what I see happening. These are the challenges and this is the opportunity. And so I wanted to be really clear around the risk and the rewards around this migration. Wanted to be clear on the effort and that this was something, not just an IT project, but this really would impact the entire organization. And so that's something that I've really been working on, is documenting how people use the system, because we did not have that. So you can imagine, a system with no clear documentation on how you're supposed to do a thing. The other part of our change management is the feedback loops, setting expectation, and really making sure the team knows. Like June 1st, I told the development team, I am yours for that week, right? I will sit in your area. You can ask me anything you can think of, because this can be very challenging, right? It can make people anxious. It could be very annoying when you're just used to wanting to just get your job done. And so being able to make sure I made the team feel supported was really important.
Have you ever had someone like not know how to do something and look it up in the docs and then do it? I've never had that happen. I mean, I've looked up my own notes, and
So,
people will often take notes about how to do it for themselves. But like, yeah, read a manual, never.
and so I try not to create manuals. I try to create what I call like little mini guides. And so instead of like one big manual, it's just this part of how do I put in a donation? How do I do this one little mini thing? And then when people ask me a question, I bring up that guide. So my goal is always to help, but also say, hey, it's also here. And then I'm looking at too, maybe people don't want to document. Maybe they want to watch a video, right? Maybe they need screenshots. So I use Loom, I use Scribe, right? So I use different types of documentation in order to help people be more empowered. But I always bring the documentation. So even if they come and ask me, we're looking at the documentation together.
Yeah, so it's just really more training, I would think, which people
Mhm.
do. I mean, before we talk about success metrics, did you get any pushback from like management, political hurdles, that kind of stuff?
I think every organization recognizes when there are some areas which would need to be improved in order to grow and scale. And so I think the entire organization understands that we are doing incredible work. And in order to do more of that incredible work, to be able to better steward our donors, to be able to help more food service workers, we have to get our systems and our processes in place. So I think that the organization was very supportive. There are some individuals that maybe were more, I don't want to say not on board, but more hesitant, right? Because if you've ever been through any type of Salesforce project, you can imagine that a Salesforce project with the wrong partner or the wrong person could go very bad. And so you could be like, okay, I've been here before. So it's just like, going to the car dealership. You're like, oh, I'm going to be here all day. There's no way you're better than all the other ones, right? And so being able to help build that trust to say, you know what, I know that some of our other projects have maybe not been the best. I wasn't the consultant. I'm so sorry. But we are going to get through this together, and being able to deliver, little wins to try to build trust, because it's not an easy way to help someone that has been burned by a Salesforce or technology project. I mean, there's no easy way around that besides trying to actually build trust by delivering a good project.
Yeah, it's like a Salesforce implementation PTSD.
Yes,
You go through one project and that's it. You're scared to do it again.
scarred for life.
Unless it's done well. So on the topic of doing things well, I'm curious, Tiffany, I believe, I should have probably checked beforehand, but I believe you're hybrid in your current role at the moment, correct?
Mhm.
Okay. So in your opinion, having done Salesforce migrations in the past, particularly in the nonprofit space, how much easier, if at all, I would assume it is, but you tell me, how much easier is it from a change management standpoint when you have the in-person presence to be able to go and meet and get people and leaders in a room, communicate those updates more in real time? It's less about flying people in, the logistics of that for training and kickoffs and go lives. What's your experience and opinion been on that with the current role?
Oh yeah. Prior to this role, you know, those of us that have been working in tech for a long time, I mean, I've worked remotely for years, well before COVID. And so for a while, I was like, I'm not taking a role in the office. You can't pay me to go in. But I actually really enjoy going into the office a few days a week just for that reason. Being able to just do impromptu meetings, ask a quick question, get clarification, get some face time with people. I think that has been extremely valuable and is needed, especially for a project of this importance. It's important for the success of the project, but also, again, building that trust with the team. And so I think you do have to understand your audience, and you do have to be able to say, does this organization need more face time with me? And so I think it's been extremely beneficial to be able to pull people into a room, to be able to do in-person working sessions. And then sometimes I go home and I need to focus, and I'll just, come here and get work done. But I also will be in the office, put in my headphones and just work from there. And so I think the hybrid nature of my role has definitely been beneficial, especially for this type of a project.
You mentioned earlier about making yourself available for the team for the whole week. Was that as basic as, hey, I'm going to be in this office or my desk, at my desk, or you just come floor walk, come pop over as needed? Did you have office hours per se, or any other tips that you would give other individuals, whether they're executives or admins, change champions, etc., that might be facing resilience when it comes to adoption?
Yeah, so specifically for my role, because as the IT manager, Salesforce is not the only system and it's not the only thing I do all day. And so one of the things that I have had to do from a change management perspective in my role, because my role is a little new to the organization, is that I had to be able to set some boundaries a little bit to say, hey, this percentage of my time is set to Salesforce, but then I need to spend another percentage of my time doing some other items for my role. And so with that mindset, because this is an important project and because I know that there may be some hiccups or questions, that is why I said, hey, for this week, I'm all yours, right? I'm 100% Salesforce this week because I want to be available for you if you have any questions, right? Versus having people say, hey, do I need to submit your form? Are you available? Can you do this? Because I have to do a lot of saying, hey, not right now, not today. Let me look at this. Let's schedule a meeting. But I wanted to be very clear that this week is 100% Salesforce, 100% for this team. I would say for a go live, you need that some level of either office hours or dedicated support, either from the person that is the Salesforce administrator and or your super users. So again, like I said, we have identified super users across our organization who should and will know how the system works. And so they will also be available for questions, because no matter how available I am, sometimes people may not want to ask me. They may want to ask each other. And so being able to have at least one person that's part of their team that maybe they feel comfortable asking a question to, I think is important. And being able to, for me, it's all about empowerment. I don't want people to have to come to me. Right? I want to empower people, whether that's through a document or videos or a super user, right? I want people to be able to know how to get their questions answered in whatever way they're comfortable with. I do think having some super users or having, again, some sort of a support plan in place is important.
Do you think typically the best super users and change champions are the ones that volunteer, or individuals that you seek out for certain personality traits, or a combination of the two?
It may be a little bit of the two. For our super users, we did speak with each area's management to talk about who we thought would be good super users. We also let them suggest, either confirm or say, hey, what about this person? Or can you add another person? So it was a little bit of both. So we looked at seniority. We looked at, people that are vocal, that would love to improve processes, people that were excited about improving the systems and, were more optimistic about the project. And so those were some of the things. This is important when you're talking about a super user, that you have someone that is comfortable with the system and that can, think a little bit outside of the box and dream a little bit bigger, because systems are all about making, if you can think about what would make my job easier, you need somebody that can think not just this sucks or, it can't get any better. You really do want to identify some people that have the capacity, that want to be like, you know what, my job could be better if the system could do this. Because again, I'm not in those roles. And so you should always reach out to those different user groups to identify those cheerleaders, those champions, and if you can, make them a super user.
How does this migration effort fit into your broader remit as IT manager in Giving Kitchen's broader digital transformation program?
So as part of our broader digital transformation, we're looking at all of our systems, all of our processes, all of our data, right? So from a data perspective, how do we empower our leadership to be able to pull more accurate reports, be able to have more visibility into what's going on, right? We do major events. So we have major events going on. How does someone know who's attending, who bought tickets, who bought sponsorships? How do we allow our management to be able to clearly see how many people have we served this week? And, what's our caseload looking like? And so there's several layers of systems and data that are going to help us as an organization work more efficiently, but also, of course, security perspective. So as part of our part of our data management, our digital transformation, of course, me looking across all of our systems for security, for processes, make sure we're not having more licenses than we need in different systems. And so again, this is just one part of looking at overall, how do we use all of our systems and how do we make sure we're using the best system for the job, right? Because there are a million applications. I tell people this all the time. I can name at least 5 project management tools, right? And they're all awesome, but which one meets your requirements? Which one is going to be better for your team? Like, I love ClickUp, but ClickUp is very much, it has a lot of customizations, it has a lot of options. Is that going to be the best for your team? Or do you need something that's a little bit more simple, a little bit of a more simple UI, right? And so these are things that you have to evaluate. Yes, we have tools. Are they the right tools? Are we using them effectively? Do we even need them at all?
Any of these systems integrated with Salesforce?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Any of these systems integrated with Salesforce? Or they're all standalone swivel chair?
Not many of them. So we have Classy, our donation management tool that's integrated with Salesforce. We have Form Assembly that's integrated with Salesforce. We have iWave integrated.
These are mostly apps, right? These are just like managed. I was thinking more of your accounting system, right?
Not yet.
Great, because that's a big one, right?
So that's the next phase of the migration, because my finance team is definitely like, please get this integrated.
So we want to talk a little bit about your involvement in the community, because I think it really is a true reflection of what the Salesforce ecosystem is and can be. So going back to when Salesforce was founded, Ohana, obviously a Hawaiian word, Hawaiian for family. I guess before we dive into your background, and I would just love for you to share kind of what the Ohana means to you and your personal opinion. Do you think that's changed over the years from 26, 27 years ago when Salesforce was created to 2016 May? Has that changed in your opinion and during your 15 years in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I definitely think it's changed. I mean, when I first started in the Salesforce ecosystem and I learned about this term Ohana, I thought it was good from a branding or even just aspirational, right? Like, we're family, and it really spoke to the community, right? So when I looked at Salesforce has an amazing, just super active customer community, and I really like the thought process. I mean, I'm assuming in the beginning, Ohana was meant internally, right, for Salesforce, the company. But then as they started to do these different initiatives with, the Salesforce user groups and the Salesforce community and the MVP program, things like that, I guess the idea was to be able to bring those values outward externally from Salesforce, the company. And I thought it was really great branding. I thought it was a great mindset to have around family and community. And I do think that value is still in the Salesforce ecosystem. It just looks a little bit different today because the world looks different today. I mean, 15 years ago, there was internet, but it wasn't the AI internet we have today. It wasn't all of the content creation the way we see it today, right? There were a lot more just tutorials and how-tos. Those were the things that we went to the internet for, different blogs, more just different types of information that I think we have today. And when I look at the Salesforce ecosystem and the community, I can only speak from my perspective. It looked a lot different 15 years ago than I think it does today. I believe the community is more vocal, is more diverse. As the company, of course, has grown, the community has grown, and being able to see some different underrepresented groups be a lot more visible brings change to the community. And some of that change can be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think it's needed because the community had to grow and change along with the world and with the company.
So one of the things you mentioned was the MVP program. So typically this is recognized, individuals are recognized based on their expertise, leadership, giving up time, generosity, things like that, right? And some of that is through forums like Leading the User Group and other initiatives, right, that are out there. So tell us a little bit about your personal road to becoming a Salesforce MVP. And in addition to that, also Golden Hoodie recipient as well. When did you become aware of these initiatives within the Salesforce ecosystem, and what does it mean to you to be recognized both personally and also professionally as well?
Yeah, so I think around 2017, 2018 is when I became more aware of some of the other programs. So when I first started in the Salesforce ecosystem, I attended some events with the Orlando Salesforce user group that at the time was led by Joshua Hoskins and
Firestone, I think.
I remember attending some of their events, and my very first community conference was Florida Dreaming, which I believe was the first community conference. Joshua Hoskins is the father of the community conferences. And then after that, I attended a world tour. And that is where I met and saw Leah McGowan Hare. And at that point in my time in the ecosystem, she was the first Black woman I'd ever seen grace a Salesforce keynote stage. And she had an initiative called BAM, Be a Multiplier. And I was the president at the time of the Black Orlando Tech organization in Orlando. I also put in my application to become the Orlando user group leader. And one of the very first big events I did was combining those two organizations and doing a big Salesforce presentation to introduce people to the platform. And we had about 90 people that showed up that night and tweeted about it and got the attention of Leah. And I think that is what helped put me on the road to MVP because of the work that I was doing from that user group meeting, that intro to Salesforce. I started a local Salesforce class that I did for free with individuals to help them get certified. And that kind of put me on the path to starting my nonprofit. I actually started the first HBCU initiative in the Salesforce space with my nonprofit that was originally called HBCU Force, is now called Tech Forward. So me doing that work, and I didn't do this work thinking, oh my God, I want to do it so I could become an MVP. I tell people all the time that you do whatever is important and passionate to you. Like this space is wide open for you to be whoever you are. So I didn't have to become a new person to do these things. I've always volunteered, I've always mentored. And so I just did that in this space because I saw that there was an opportunity to do so. And I really enjoyed what I was doing in this space. I knew what income could be created. And I knew that people were not aware. And so that is how I started down this road to becoming an MVP and then Golden Hoodie. I received that honor because of the conference that I created called Dreaming in Color, which again, the ecosystem is very welcoming, right? Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that I didn't feel welcome at conferences, community conferences, or even the Salesforce, big conferences, Dreamforce, Trailblazer DX. It was just that there weren't a lot of people that looked like me. And so I thought about why is that? And I wanted to create a space where people felt like, if I come there, maybe I will see more people that look like me. And that maybe will feel less like another work event. And so that is kind of why I started Dreaming in Color. I was just thinking about what I wanted to see reflected in the ecosystem and being able to help people really see that, oh, there are more people that look like me that work in this space, because it's not that they're not, it's just that they didn't know, because when you show up to events, you don't see them. And so now we have a place where you can come see them. So I really, really enjoy the work that I do, advocating for individuals, being able to expose different communities to the tech ecosystem and to the tech space through Salesforce. And I always tell them, Salesforce is not the only platform that you could do this with. It's just the one that I know. But there are a lot of SaaS applications, right? Workday, ServiceNow, HubSpot. There are all these applications that you can get certified with and create a great income. And that's really the point of the work that I'm doing.
In terms of Dreaming in Color, so if there's perhaps listeners who have not heard of Dreaming in Color, what is the elevator pitch on what it is, and is it a quarterly or yearly event, and in person, virtual? Give us the I guess the advertisement for what Dreaming in Color is.
Dreaming in Color is a community conference for, at the time it was, when I started, it was geared toward empowering Black Salesforce professionals. We've since also created a space to uplift and empower Hispanic and Latin individuals, and of course, anybody that supports those audiences. And we focus on Salesforce, MuleSoft, Tableau, Slack. It's normally 2 days. This year it'll be 1.5 days of programming. It's going to be in Atlanta on August the 14th. And it is an amazing, people like to refer to it as like a family reunion. We do a cookout on the very first night to kind of set the scene for the event. We have an opening keynote and a day full of sessions, and we end with our awards dinner and after party. And it is an amazing just day full of leadership talks. We talk about career planning. This year, we're going to talk a lot about AI and how AI is impacting people's career journeys and what you should be looking toward as far as your career and things in the Salesforce ecosystem. We have amazing speakers, again, people that may not be very visible in the space today, maybe people that are not super active. We give people the chance, amazing qualified people, the chance to speak and meet others. So it's a really amazing event.
How many years has this been ongoing? What number of conferences is this year?
This is going to be our 5th year.
Well, we'll include the link in your episode podcast as well. So, if anyone has any questions about it, then obviously reach out to Tiffany directly. Hopefully we'll have a few listeners of this episode there to meet you in person. So, keep us posted on that. Wishing you the best for this year. And then also wanted to tell us a little bit about the community advisory board and your participant within that or on that. What does that look like? I mean, what is the community advisory board, and how did you get nominated for that? And what is your role as part of that?
So I believe we had to apply to be on the community advisory board, and then I believe we were selected. And so the advisory board is really an opportunity to represent community voices and to contribute to how Salesforce engages in the ecosystem, right? So being on the advisory board really gives me a chance to shape how Salesforce listens to and recognizes the community. We get to work on some really amazing initiatives with leadership across Salesforce and really help to get answers and just be the voice. And I think for a little while here, I think one of the main critiques coming from the community was that they felt that Salesforce wasn't listening, and it's been harder for people to understand how to get their questions answered, how to get their concerns heard. I think, again, as the community grows, those of us that have been in the ecosystem for a long time, it's like we kind of understand how Salesforce works and how, as much as they're a big company, that doesn't mean everybody knows what everybody's doing. And so there's a lot of times I'm talking to Salesforce employees and I know more than they do. And so being able to, and that can be frustrating, right? When you're talking to somebody, you feel like they should be able to help you with your AE, or, they should be able to help you with this product feature that you don't like, or anything around that, right? It could be very frustrating as a new person, or even somebody that, again, just doesn't understand how to connect and get connected to the Salesforce ecosystem. So I really like the opportunity to be on the community advisory board and to be able to help with some semi-structured feedback, to be able to help be the voice, to help reinforce programs, the intentionality, the transparency, as much as we can be transparent, being involved in different conversations. To me, my voice has always been it's official, but it's a little bit unofficial. And so the advisory board makes it a little bit more official, right? To be able to say that, yes, we are on this board with Salesforce, and, we're here so that people understand that, the community is not just for marketing, it's not just for celebrations, but, the community wants to be heard. We need resources, and we would like to have some say in some decision making. So we try to be the beacon of that.
How often do you guys meet? It's like just, I guess, a select set of, I don't know, community representatives and Salesforce.
So we have different working groups. So we meet monthly. We were meeting more often, but we just switched to monthly for your different working group. And then as a whole board, I believe we meet quarterly as a board. I don't know the schedules. I think we have a 1.5-year term.
Yeah, cool. So I apologize if this question's a little out of line, but so if you can't answer, that's fine. This year particularly, there's been a lot of like griping about the direction Salesforce has been going. A little bit with headless. A lot of people feel like, a lot of people feel like they're just not happy with the direction of the company. It's reflected in the stock price, which has been, let's say, very volatile. Have that been something that they're talking about?
I think Salesforce as a company is moving very fast. And from a company perspective, I guess I understand that, right? So it's this great AI race. And I think every platform that any of us are on have rolled out one or more AI features. And so I think some of the criticism or concern around specifically the Salesforce space has just been the fast-paced rollout, because that's not something that we're used to, right? We're used to 4 releases a year. And so we know the release is coming, we get the release notes, we can test it, we can play with it, we can prepare for it. And now all of a sudden we're getting, new things every month and product renames. And so I think that the rapid change really cause concern, as well as not. I mean, if you think about headless, for example, I don't know what that means. It's not a new concept though. And so a lot of these things are not new concepts. If you're more technical, or if you're maybe more of a developer, then maybe you have more understanding about some of these concepts. But for the rest of us, right, for a long time, Salesforce was the place you could be where you didn't have to be so technical. And I think that for me at least, it can feel, and it does feel like a lot changing all at once. And I don't know what's working. How much does this cost? Why are you doing this? I don't want to use it. Who's going to use it? I mean, there's all these questions. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I don't run Salesforce. From my standpoint, I try to separate the two, right? I don't run Salesforce. I don't know why they do what they do. However, I can recognize that the community that I serve may not understand all of these new features and technology, because I don't. And so my role in the community is to say, okay, how can I make these things more understandable, more accessible? How can I get people up to speed? How can I fill that gap? Because to me, that's the role that I play. That was the whole purpose, right? It was fun when you knew it was coming, you could be prepared and you could be the expert on it. Now it doesn't feel so much fun because you're learning with everyone else. I just think that there's a lot of angst and confusion, and rightfully so, because Salesforce, and they have admitted this, they haven't done the best job with communicating, right? Because everybody's been moving so fast, right? They're employees, they're people too. And so they got the email like we got the email. I think we assumed that they got the email months before, and I don't think everybody did. And so because I just so happened to have the privilege to be able to talk to Salesforce employees a little bit more often, I think I have a little bit of a different viewpoint and a different perspective that I think might help with people that are just very frustrated with the company overall. And I think it's more just questions, it's more communication, it's more clarity, it's more transparency, it's more information, because that's what we're used to.
I think a lot of it is uncertainty on what's going to happen, and even
Mhm.
Salesforce doesn't know. So
Right.
they're trying to pivot in an uncertain world, and everyone else is trying to pivot as fast as they're pivoting.
Mhm.
Um, and there's a level of frustration there, um, because of the uncertainty, and then all of the Salesforce intentionally tries not to be super forward looking because you make promises. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah. So leading on that, right? Obviously you do a lot of work in the community and advising, at least in the broader level, how people should move forward with their tech career, particularly in Salesforce. So what would be your advice nowadays in 2026, either for someone trying to break into the ecosystem or even someone who's been experienced, been doing this for a few years? Where do you think they should push their skill set? Should it be on platform or Salesforce specific AI skills or generic AI skills or all of the above, or pivot back to core Salesforce? Like there's so much.
There's so much. I think if you're trying to break into the ecosystem, being really specific and strategic is what's important. So I don't think being a CRM generalist or an admin generalist is the right goal. I think that you should have a technical skill or strategy or industry skill, right? Meaning, do you know nonprofits really well? Do you know healthcare really well? Understanding how healthcare works with Salesforce, understanding Health Cloud. I think you have to be a little bit more strategic today to really get your footing in the Salesforce space. The platform is just much more complex. And so I tell people all the time, I've worked with this platform for a really long time, and I'm in a Slack channel with people that have been doing this for 20 years. And we ask questions all day. So there's no one that knows everything, but most people know a part of a product or some area really well. When I'm looking at job descriptions now, when I'm looking at the way Salesforce is moving, I just think that being very strategic in the side of a product, some sort of technical skill or an area is going to be super important. In general, I think people should know CRM fundamentals, right? How does Salesforce work? How does any CRM work? Why does the company want to use it? I think data is super important because you're talking about data quality, you're talking about all the data models. Everybody's collecting a lot of data. And so somebody has to know what to do with it. I think business process mapping is super important right now, those BA skills, because somebody has to tell the AI what to do. And it's not even just the AI, right? When you were building any type of automation, you needed to be able to map out the processes. And so I think that's more important now than it ever has been. I talked a little bit about reporting and dashboards. So again, going back to a specific technical skill, right? Knowing Tableau is a great strategy. Knowing MuleSoft for integrations, knowing how to automate. Even if it's not in Salesforce, there are a lot of organizations that are using things like Zapier. So knowing how to make, again, this goes back to business process mapping. If you map out the process, you can see where there's some manual steps where automation could be helpful. And automation is not just AI, but there are a lot of automation tools, and just, again, when you're mapping out the process, you can see where there are some gaps in the systems. I do think AI literacy is super important. Knowing how to use AI tools, understanding how they work, because I won't say they're basically the same AI features in every single app. And so if you don't know how to use them, you don't know how to, I think for both people that are entering the space and people that are experienced, I think today, again, with so much, I don't want to call it noise, but it's just an overwhelming amount of content, information. I think that relationships are important. So getting in front of people, really getting out and networking, which some of us need practice, right? Coming from COVID, this is new because for a while everything was virtual. And now everything's not virtual because I think people are over virtual a little bit. And so being able to really get back to relationships, making sure you have a mentor. I think experienced Salesforce professionals really need to work on their visibility. Have you branded yourself? Do you know where your career is going? Have you looked at any speaker opportunities? Have you been getting leadership practice? So I really think that showing up, joining user groups, going to different events, sharing what you're learning, volunteering, I think those are all great ways today to really brand yourself. And I think your community and your network is so important. Again, it's one of the reasons why I'm still doing my conference, Dreaming in Color. And again, it's the work that I do year round, right? Because Dreaming in Color is meant to be a fundraiser to eventually help to support the work that Tech Forward does year round. And so year round, as I am coaching people in their careers, as I'm helping people get started, as I'm helping college students figure out their next move, relationships are really important. In this job market, relationships are everything, knowing the right people. Community is just one of the most powerful career accelerators. And so I think that for both beginning and experienced professionals, I think we have to get back to some of those core basics that I think we all learned when we were going through college, is now just kind of going back to some of that.
I think great advice there, Tiffany. I think if I'm not doing you a disservice to summarize, I think it's the T-shaped funnel approach. So broad job responsibilities. So no longer is it just a defined admin, it's now admin, BA, QA, all in one kind of role with the skills of other CRM, adjacent ERP integrations, your other platforms that Salesforce offer. Maybe it's a Tableau, maybe it's a Slack, right? That's the T, and then the narrowing it down on the industry. Knowing that industry inside out, the use cases, specializing in that industry. I think that skill set, certainly from what we're seeing and what I'm also advising people, is absolutely spot on in terms of aligning with what you talked about there. I think your advice as well around relationships is something we've both preached on our past podcasts that we did for the show as well. You have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, as someone coined it. So I think we're all guilty of maybe saying, you know what, next time. But the reality is that next time's here. So, you have to focus on what you can control, and networking is part of that. So a fantastic episode, Tiffany. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure you'll probably field some questions once this airs from our network. So thank you for your time today. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.